hello there, hello there, YouTubes and the Twitches. How the devil are we all? I'm very well. Thank you for asking. Now, it is 7 PM in the UK. It is 2 PM on the east coast of America, and it is, of course, 7 AM in the great nation of Fiji. All hail Fiji! But it is also Saturday, so it's a special one. This, in other words, I'm a bit bored. And there's a topic I wanted to talk about, and it might not be relevant by Monday, so fuck it, I thought I'd do it now. You know. Anyway. Who's the bloke in the picture? That is a young version, a very young version, of a certain Mr. Donald Trump, who is, what's the opposite of a winner? What's that called again? A loser. He's a loser. He's a massive fucking loser. Yes, and we're here to talk about that. Don't for a moment think we're not going to be talking about that. That's literally virtually all we're going to be talking about. But first, before we get into the main meat of today's meal, an entree, or a cringe tray, if you will, sort of related to the MAGA cringe compilations, more of which are coming soon, I assure you. There's one particular guy who appears in one of them, who goes by the name of Mike Blaze, although you wouldn't necessarily know it from the cringe compilation itself, because I don't use their names, because they're not worth knowing the names of, frankly. They're a joke. Anyway, he's the guy who appears on TikTok largely in black and white film, you know, that kind of filter, slate grey filter. And he is one of the most pretentious twats I've ever seen. He's genuinely ridiculous. What a farcical human being. And he does weird, pretentious sort of bits of poetry or something, I think it's supposed to be. Anyway. No, it's not the Blaze TV guy, no. It's a different, it's spelled B-L-A-I-Z, or Z if you're American. And therefore wrong on this occasion. Yes, and he's become one of my favourite of the cringe lords. He really has. And in addition to his weird, pretentious pseudo poetry, black and white stuff, he does black and white, slate grey filtered white people rap. Now, the reason I'm giving you this preamble is because I need to give you ample warning for this. Make sure you are seated, definitely. Make sure you have no sharp or breakable objects within your near range. And make sure that your buttocks are firmly clenched, because being exposed to the level of cringe that you're about to be exposed to can lead to anal prolapse. So please bear that in mind. If you are not of sound constitution, I would suggest you switch off at this point to save your mortal soul. Is the only way I can really put it. As I introduced to you, the cringiest thing in the history of the world. It's already good. Look at it. That's the opening frame. Let's take a look. Now, this guy so desperately wants to say the N-word. So desperately.
Shame on a rigger who tried to run game on a wigger. Get buck well with the trigger. Shame on a rigger who tried to run game on a wigger. Cuck south, fuck your ass up. Cuck one, cuck two, cuck three. Black, call me your master. Why? Cause you're a mutt. Magas unbreakable, shatterproof, confused commie goose. You wanna get gun? Shoot. Blow. How you like me now? Don't fuck the style. Ruthless, wow. Commies when they get their teeth knocked the fuck out. Maga get it home like that, so shut your mouth. Ah! Shame on a rigger who tried to run game on a...
Oh, fucking hell. Oh. White people, please, and I'm begging you, I'm begging you here, please, please stop. Just stop. Please, for the love of God, you're hurting yourselves and you're hurting those around you, okay? Please fucking stop. Oh, Yeah, I am sick. Yeah, because I am. I need to stop looking for this shit. True. This is my sickness. Okay, like some people have like sort of a hypochondria thing where they need to look out for like medical signs of things and like read up on diagnoses of different diseases and then think that they might have it themselves. And it's like a kind of mental illness thing that they need to look a kind of tick, a behavioural tick they have to try and get over. This is like that for me. This is like that, but for me, okay. I have to look out for lol cow cringe lord fucking garbage like this. It's like a kink. It's like a kink. Only it's genuinely a perversion. It's not. It's not like a good kink. It's like it's one you only ever reveal once you get to know someone in DMs. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Anyway, and I don't intend to stop. Anyway, talking of white people, or at least kind of white people who look strange because they're wearing some sort of filter, and who need to stop, Donald Trump. Like I say, he's a loser. He's a loser. He's a loser. I think that needs to be reiterated more. Of all the things one can and should criticise Donald Trump for, we also need to bear in mind that he is a massive, massive fucking loser. That's definitely the point. Anyway, not only is he a massive loser, he's one of the worst sore losers in the history of the world. And we're going to be getting onto that as we go. Yes, so unable to accept the basic reality that he lost, and he lost fair and square, Donald Trump ordered recounts in a couple of counties in Wisconsin and in the whole state of Georgia. Now, the Georgia one's pending because it's a much larger geographic area with many more people, because it's a whole state rather than just a couple of counties. Anywho, the one in Wisconsin, specifically in Milwaukee County, has come back, and it's hilarious. Now, it must be borne in mind that the selective nature of these recounts is obviously racially based. They're going after places like Detroit in Michigan. They're going after places like Milwaukee in Wisconsin. They're going after places like Atlanta in Georgia. Basically the bits where the black people live. Because that's the thing, in America, most of the black people that live there live in a few places. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Detroit, Atlanta, those, bigger cities usually. If you go to like rural Alabama, probably not that many black people around. Just as a rule. Not saying there are none, but not many. And this is obviously racially based, and it's obviously political hackwork meant to try and throw a spanner into the works. And it won't work, by the way. Because again, he's a loser. He's a loser. Like, if he had any sense of balls to him, he'd actually just try and do a military coup at this point. Because he clearly wants to. He clearly doesn't give two fucks about the legal processes that are being undergone. He doesn't give two fucks about democracy. That's for damn sure. So he'd just try and do a military coup at this point, but he doesn't even have the backbone for that. He's got nothing. He's a sackless bitch. He really is. Anyway, ordered this partial recount in Wisconsin, and surprise, surprise, not only did he not win, he actually managed to lose ground. Okay? It cost him $3 million fucking dollars. Well, not him, his idiot followers who funded this, because he said he was going to fund his own campaign, but just like in 2016, it was a lie. He didn't. He didn't put a penny of his money in. Mainly because he doesn't have two pennies to rub together, but well, there we go. He ordered the recount, $3 million, and Joe Biden actually extended his lead. He fails at failing. He fails so hard, it's like compound failure. It's like a nuclear explosion reaction of fail. Fail popping up fail and destroying Trumpashima. That's a reference for you. Fucking hell, that went to a dark place, didn't it? Anyway, a recount in Wisconsin's largest county demanded by Republican President Donald Trump, lol, election campaign ended Friday with Democratic President-elect Joe Biden gaining votes. Just let that information just sink in there, okay? Donald Trump wanted to try and win votes in order to try and get the flip on the state in Wisconsin, and actually managed to lose ground at his own financial cost, or his campaign's financial cost. He's a spectacularly shit human being, both morally and corporally, so to speak. After the recount in Milwaukee County, Biden had a net gain of 132 votes. Out of nearly 460,000 cast, overall Biden gained 257 votes to Trump's 125. So, I don't even know how that much works out, but he paid $3 million, of other people's money to be fair, but $3 million to give Joe Biden another 132 votes in the lead. It's spectacular counterproductivity. Look, he would literally be in a better place in Wisconsin if he had done nothing. If he'd literally done nothing, he would be better off now. Wow. Trump's campaign had demanded recounts in 2 of Wisconsin's most popular and Democratic-leaning counties, and the only places where black people live in Wisconsin, let's be honest. After losing Wisconsin to Biden by over 20,000 votes. That's 20,132. The 2 recounts will cost the Trump campaign $3 million. Dane County is expected to finish its recount on Sunday. So you'd have to... I love that. Even if Dane County comes back with Trump getting 100 votes, he'd still be 32 out. Fucking hell. This is spectacular. Overall, Biden won the November the 3rd presidential election with 306 electoral college votes, many more than the 270 needed for victory. To Trump's 232. Now, you'll notice 232 is not as many as 270, is it? So, you're lost. Biden also led by more than 6 million votes in the popular vote tally. After the recount ended, Milwaukee County Clerk George Christensen said, quote, "The recount demonstrates what we already knew, or what we already know, that elections in Milwaukee County are fair, transparent, accurate, and secure." Unquote. The Trump campaign is still expected to mount a legal challenge to the overall result in Wisconsin, but time is running out. The state is due to certify its presidential result on Tuesday. So, I mean, I would say watch this space, but you don't really need to. Look, Wisconsin's done. It's done. It's over. The election in general is. Now, one tiny victory for the Trump campaign, but loss for democracy, because, again, they like to talk a big game about fraud, the Trump campaign, do they not? But they don't actually have any evidence of it. So they've had, potentially, at least temporarily, a very small number of ballots tossed in the state of Pennsylvania on this occasion. Now, before we even get into this story, because this seems like a piece of good news for Trump, but it isn't really at all. Makes no difference. Note that everything is predicated on the idea here that... where are we? Wait, where the... None of the votes affected by Thursday's ruling have yet been included in the state's official tally. So, none of the votes here actually have been counted yet, so this makes no difference to the numbers whatsoever. Pennsylvania appellate court sides with Trump in fight over voter ID deadlines for voters, tossing small number of ballots, believed to be around 2,100 ballots. They'd already been set aside. Now you'll see some Trump people trying to tout this as like, it's the big win, but it's not. It's nothing. 2,100 votes. Donald Trump needs to pull back like 60, 70,000 votes. And this doesn't pull back a single vote, because these had been set aside. A ruling before the count had taken place decided to set these ones aside pending a ruling on whether it was okay or not. So these votes hadn't been counted at all. These votes are irrelevant to the current numbers. This means nothing. And as much as the Trump campaign have made some amount of work and annoyance for the legal system in this, it works both ways. Because this is an appellate court decision. This means it can be challenged by the state authorities and taken potentially all the way up to the Supreme Court. And I hope they do, just to annoy Trump. Because again, if you want to clog up the works and slow things down, time's not on your side, Donald. You're going to lose, mate. Now, talking of him losing, this is the main piece for the evening. Now, this might seem like it's going to be a bit boring and a bit dry, and in parts it will be, and I apologise for that in advance, because it is a legal document. But this legal document, I'll be honest, I want to make love to this document. I want to make love to this document. I want to impregnate it. It needs to have my babies, and we can have human paper babies, which are definitely a thing. It's the love that dare not speak its name in many respects, but there we go. This was released on Friday, I believe. The United States Court of Appeal for the Third Circuit, which is basically because the main body of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court didn't take this on, so the appellate court did, which means the next stop potentially would be the US Supreme Court. It won't go that far, and even if it did, all I would do would kick it back down to this court again, and it'd be chucked out again. So it's going nowhere, right? But Donald Trump lost this case, right? And the truly beautiful element of it, and we'll read through the entire thing. It's only 21 pages, so don't worry, it's not going to take forever. The really beautiful thing is, it's one of the most scathing and savage, brutal legal documents, certainly that I've ever seen, and I dare say that this court has ever produced. And it was done by a guy called Chief Judge Bibas, right? So Circuit Judge Bibas, sorry, who was a Trump appointee. Donald Trump, put this guy on this court. And his case, Donald Trump's case, is so bad that Bibas ripped him a new arsehole. It's very funny. The opening paragraph is beautiful enough in itself. It's that good, right? So this is Donald Trump for President Inc. versus the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and then the several boards of the county election boards. So Philadelphia County, Allegheny County, Delaware County, and all the rest of them. So this is Chief Bibas. So Circuit Judge Bibas, who was put on the court by Trump, okay? So this isn't like some deep state plant. This isn't some Obama communist judge, which is a thing in their eyes, apparently. This is some non-Trump up there. Put it in the middle for you there, so you can all fucking see it properly. Let's biggen it. Let's biggen it, shall we? Free, fair elections are the lifeblood of our democracy. Good start. Charges of unfairness are serious, but calling an election unfair does not make it so. Charges require specific allegations and then proof. We have neither here. So literally in the first paragraph, you've got nothing. This case is shit. You need two things to make this case work, and you've got neither of them. Get the fuck out of my sight. Literally, they might as well have just produced a document that said they got nothing and just put that out. It would have been just as accurate, although less detailed. So, you know. The Trump presidential campaign asserts that Pennsylvania's 2020 election was unfair, but as lawyer Rudolph Giuliani, he of the melting face, you may remember, the campaign, quote, doesn't plead fraud. This is not a fraud case, unquote, in the motion to dismiss, blah, blah, blah. And you'll notice that, right? The Trump campaign, when they're out in the court of public opinion, are absolutely effusive about it's fraud, everything's fraud, communists, vuvuzela, Cuba, China, the ghost of Hugo Chavez wants to rape your dog, right? It's all of that. They give it all of that fucking nonsense. And when they get into court, it's, well, Mr. Lawyer, it would just be nice if you just gave the electoral votes to Mr. Trump, even though he lost. That, please, Mr. Judge Man. It's pathetic. Because they know they can't just go in there and lie, because there are ramifications for lying in a court. Giuliani and these two, they need to be done for fucking sedition. This is an attempt to overthrow American democracy. It's embarrassing. I don't know if the legal definitions would allow for that, but if they don't, then they need to be amended to allow for future cases like this to go under the description of sedition, because this is precisely what this is. Instead, it objects that Pennsylvania's Secretary of State and some restricted poll watchers and some counties restricted poll watchers and let voters fix technical defects in their mail-in ballots. It offers nothing more. Nothing more. So basically, the poll watchers weren't close enough, and I don't know this. They allowed voters to fix technical defects. So, not fraud, not illegal voting, not dead people voting. Legal people who are allowed to vote, voting legally, but making small technical errors, nothing more, nothing fraudulent, just a mistake. Allowing them to fix that mistake meant that the Trump campaign wanted those legal votes thrown out. Defending the Republic. This case is not about... that's the name of Sidney Powell's website, anyway. This case is not about whether those claims are true. Rather, the campaign appeals on a very narrow ground, whether the district court abused its discretion in not letting the campaign amend its complaint a second time. It did not. Basically, they were trying to waste the court's time. It's nonsense. Most of the claims in the second amended complaint boil down to issues of state law. But Pennsylvania law is willing to overlook many technical defects. It favours counting votes as long as there is no fraud. So basically, in favour of people being allowed to vote, which is surprising to some Americans, apparently. Indeed, the campaign has already litigated and lost many of these issues in state courts. Yep, they have. They've lost a lot of cases. Not just that, but the fact that it's been set out that this is issues of state law, the Supreme Court aren't going to touch that shit with a barge pole, my man. They're not going near states. Because there's the thing. Republicans seem to think that states' rights boils down to being racist and guns. It's not. It's a proper legal doctrine. It affects many, many things, including allowing people to vote in states. It's a thing. The campaign tries to repackage these state law claims as unconstitutional discrimination, yet its allegations are vague and conclusory. In other words, they're not very well defined, which doesn't help because that's what the law needs it to be well defined, and conclusory. The thing is, the reason that that's bad is that even though obviously everyone knows that both sides have a conclusion that they want, the conclusion must be drawn by the court itself, by the judges, or in the case of a jury trial by the jury. Although this obviously isn't a jury instance. So you can't go in there and say this is the conclusion, because that's the court's job. You have to provide evidence as to why the court should come to the conclusion you think they should. You can't just go in there and say the election is fraudulent. You need to show that the election was fraudulent, and then the court will decide based on the evidence whether it was or not. And courts don't like A, having their time wasted, which they know they are having their time wasted here, and B, don't like you doing the court's job for it. That's not how it works. Stay in your fucking lane, Rudy. It never alleges that anyone treated the Trump campaign or Trump votes worse than it treated the Biden campaign or Biden votes. So literally, their whole case is that it was supposed to be discrimination under the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution, but then literally never alleged that the Trump campaign was treated different to the Biden campaign. So it's nothing. This case is nothing. And they think the fucking Supreme Court are going to judge on this. You've got nothing. Even if I mean, Trump has obviously stacked the court, but they need to have some evidence even if they want to give Trump the election, you have to give them some evidence that they can work with. You've got nothing. It's embarrassing. Anyway. And federal law does not require poll watchers or specify how they may observe. It also says nothing about curing technical state law errors in ballots. Each of these defects is fatal, and the proposed Second Amendment complaint does not fix them. So the district court properly denies leave to amend again. Nor does the campaign deserve an injunction to undo Pennsylvania's certification of its votes. Yeah, they want to disenfranchise the entire state of Pennsylvania. Millions of people, their right to vote gone. That's what they want. The campaign's claims have no merit. I'll repeat that. This is a judge that Donald John Trump, still technically, at least till January the 20th, President of the United States of America, this is a judge that Donald John Trump man, put on the court, and he says the campaign's claim have no merit. Not don't have sufficient merit. They have no merit. Declaratively, zero merit. The number of ballots it specifies challenges is far smaller than the roughly 81,000 vote margin of victory, and it never claims fraud or that any votes were cast by illegal voters. Again, outside the court, Pennsylvania ran the most corrupt campaign in the history of the world. Philadelphia is the most corrupt city in the world because the blacks live there. Oops, did I say the quiet bit loud again? Oh, silly me. My face is fucking melting. And then when they get into court, no, there's no illegal votes and that. Can you just give the result to Donald Trump, please? Please, Mr. Lawyer, please, Mr. Judge Man, can we have the results, please? It's fucking spineless goonery. Plus, tossing out millions of mail-in ballots would be drastic and unprecedented, disenfranchising a huge swath of the electorate and upsetting all down-ballot races too. That remedy would be grossly disproportionate. Again, that remedy would be grossly disproportionate to the procedural challenges raised, so we deny the motion for an injunction pending appeal. So they are given right to appeal, but again, it's going to go to the Supreme Court and they're going to not touch it. Because why the fuck would they? Background. Pennsylvania election law. In Pennsylvania, each county runs its own elections, blah-de-blah-de-blah, chooses the staff and polling places. They buy their own ballot boxes and voting machines. They count each vote and post the results. In all this, counties must follow Pennsylvania election law, but counties can and do adopt rules and guidance for election officers and electors, and have changed to ensure the elections are honest, efficiently, and uniformly conducted. 1. Poll watchers and representatives. Counties must admit qualified poll watchers to observe votes being tallied. Poll watchers must be registered to vote in the county where they serve. Each candidate can pick 2 poll watchers per election district per political party. The poll watchers, each political party 3. I don't know anyway, but 2 or 3 then, whatever. The poll watchers remain at the polling place while election officials count in-person ballots. They can ask to check voting lists, ID, and they get to be present when officials open and count all mail-in ballots. Likewise, candidates and political parties' representatives may be present when absentee and mail-in ballots are inspected, opened or counted, and when provisional ballots are examined, defining provisional ballots as those cast by voters whose registration cannot be verified right away. Still, counties have some control over these poll watchers and representatives. The election code does not tell counties how they must accommodate them. So all this nonsense about we're being too far away, as long as you're all being treated the same, tough shit, basically. And again, they don't allege that the campaigns were treated differently, so you've got no case. Counties need only allow them in the polling place or in the room where ballots are being inspected, opened and counted. Counties are expected to set up an enclosed space for vote counters at the polling place, and poll watchers shall remain outside that enclosed space. So the counties decide where the watchers stand and how close they get to the vote counters. 2. Mail-in ballots. For decades, Pennsylvania let only certain people, like members of the military and their families, vote by mail. But last year, as part of a bipartisan election reform, Pennsylvania expanded mail-in voting. Now, any Pennsylvania voter can vote by mail for any reason. Again, bipartisan, so Republicans put that in as well, okay? This isn't some deep state leftist conspiracy. To vote by mail, a Pennsylvania voter must take several steps. First, he or she must ask the state commonwealth for his county for a mail-in ballot. To do that, he must submit a form, blah blah blah. Once its completion is correct, the county's It's taking you through the vote-in mail process. Doesn't really need to go into all that detail particularly, but there we go. Next, the ballot. Yeah, next they take you through the process, right? So they have to sign a thing and then declare that they're the person they claim they are, and then they will try and vote again once they've posted their mail-in ballot or whatever. So they won't post the ballot and then go down to the thing and try and cast the ballot, because that's voting twice, which is illegal. So, and all of that shit, right? Not every voter can be expected to follow this process perfectly. Some forget one of the envelopes, because there's a security envelope and then there's an outside main envelope, which is the one that's like delivered through the post room. Not every voter can be expected to follow through. Some forget one of the envelopes, others forget to sign on the dotted line. Some major errors will invalidate a ballot. For instance, counties may not count mail-in ballots that lack secrecy envelopes. But the election code says nothing about what should happen if a county notices these errors before election day. So in other words, it's up to the counties to allow the process of curing or not. Some counties stay silent and do not count the ballots. Others contact the voters and give them a chance to correct their errors. And actually, rather a nice example of that was in one of the counties, I think it was one of the precincts in Detroit. There was a guy called William Bradley. You may have seen this. It was a meme that went around amongst the right wing. There was a guy called William Bradley who was born in 1902 or 1908 who was officially down registered. And they were like, oh, see, dead people are voting. Problem was, that ballot, that date was the wrong date, because he still lived at the same address as the great-grandfather, who was the guy who was technically on the screen because of the birth date, but it was his great-grandson, also called William Bradley, who lived at the same address in, I think it was Detroit, who was the legal voter. It's just it had the wrong address, the wrong birth date. And so they were saying, oh, it's, illegal votes, blah, blah, blah. But by putting that out there, the William Bradley who is not the William Bradley who died in 1986 or 84 or whatever the fuck it was his great-grandson, who was a legal voter in Detroit, who then went down to his county election board, cured his ballot, and voted for Joe Biden. So that was a Joe Biden ballot that wouldn't have counted, but because the right wing kicked up a stink about a clerical error, it was noticed, rectified by the voter, and then another vote went to Joe Biden. So, again, the counterproductivity of the Trumpists is absolutely off the charts. They're amazing, these fucking people. Genuine idiots. What's this? Investigate 311. What's 311? What have I missed on? What's 311? I don't know. Anyway. Hello to everyone in both of the chats. How are we all? Facts and procedural history. Pardon me. On appeal from the dismissal of a complaint, we take the factual allegations as true. 1. Mail-in voting. For months, Pennsylvanians went to the poll, as so to speak. The first batch of mail-in ballots were sent out in late September. As they trickled back in, election officials noticed that some voters had not followed the rules. Some ballots were not in the secrecy envelopes, so these packages were lighter and thinner than complete ballot packages. Others had declarations that voters had not completed. Some counties did not notify voters about these defective ballots. Others, including the counties named in this suit, again, because that's the only ones they're going after, are the ones that try to facilitate people voting, but they're claiming to support democracy. Ridiculous. Decided to reach out to the voters to let them cure their mistakes by voting provisionally on election day or asking for a replacement ballot. 2. Election day. Though more than 2 million Pennsylvanians voted by mail, even more voted in person. On election day, November the 3rd, the campaign set up poll watchers at polling places around the Commonwealth, because the Pennsylvania doesn't call itself the state of Pennsylvania, it's the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which is annoying and confusing, but whatever. Appellees, which is the appellants, which is Donald Trump campaign, basically. Appellees, election officials, kept poll watchers and representatives away from the ballots, from where the ballots were opened, counted and tallied. In Philadelphia, for instance, poll watchers were kept 6 to 25 feet back from officials. In comparison, other Republican-controlled counties did give the campaign's poll watchers and representatives full access. But again, under the Equal Protection Clause, it needs to be that in a specific county, there was a difference between the Trump and Biden campaigns. But there wasn't. So the fact that Republicans allowed them to stand slightly closer means nothing. That's not a case here, or any case at all. In all, nearly 7 million Pennsylvanians voted, more than a third by mail. So a third of 7 million, right? Or nearly 7 million. As of today, former Vice President Biden leads President Trump in Pennsylvania by 81,660 votes. See what I mean? Even those 2,000 votes, even if those 2,000 votes had all gone to either candidate or 50-50, it wouldn't make any difference. It's nothing. They haven't been counted anyway, so they don't change the results. Pennsylvania's county certified their election results by the November the 23rd certification deadline. The next morning, the Secretary of State, technically Secretary of the Commonwealth, again, legal people are strange, certified the vote totals, and the governor signed the certification of ascertainment and sent it to the U.S. Archivist. The Department of State certifies presidential election results, blah, blah, blah. The lawsuit. Almost a week after the election, so really getting off to a cracking start there, the campaign, as well as 2 voters, sued 7 Pennsylvania counties and Secretary of State Kathy Boockvar. It alleged that they had violated the due process, equal protection and electors and elections clause of the US Constitution by taking 2 basic actions. First, the counties, encouraged by Secretary Boockvar, identified defective mail-in ballots and told voters how to fix them. So again, not that this was illegal voting or election fraud, just that they tried to help facilitate people voting. The Trump campaign are against people being allowed to vote, or people being facilitated. That the state would want people to try and vote is bad. Again, which one's the Patriotic Party again? Second, they kept poll watchers and representatives from watching election counts, watching officials count all ballots. Hang on. Second, they kept poll watchers and representatives from watching officials count all ballots. Okay, right. So far, the campaign has filed or tried to file 3 complaints. The original complaint, filed November 9th, set out 6 counts plus a duplicate. After Boockvar and the counties moved to dismiss on November the 15th, the campaign filed a first amended complaint as of right, dropping 4 of the 6 counts plus the duplicate, including all of the counts related to poll watchers and representatives. So they even realised that was whiny shit and just tried to drop it in order to try and waste time. The campaign sought a preliminary injunction to block certification of the result, certifying the election results. Boockvar and the counties again moved to dismiss on November the 18th. The campaign sought to file a second amended complaint, resurrecting 4 dropped claims from the original complaint and adding 3 more about how Philadelphia had blocked poll watching, which isn't true, but whatever. The district court ended these volleys, denying leave to file a second amended complaint. Instead, it dismissed the first amended complaint with prejudice and denied the campaign's motion for a preliminary injunction as moot. Basically, when it says moot there, it's because they're trying to stop the certification, and the certification had happened. So it's, what are you asking us to do? It's like saying, can we go back in time and stop that from happening? No, we can't. Get the fuck out of my courtroom. Anyway, and they can't appeal it in this court, so they would have to take it to a higher court, which won't go there because it's a state's rights issue, basically, or a state law issue. As much as they've tried to Frankenstein this into a US federal constitution issue, it isn't. We commend the district court for its fast, fair, patient handling of this demanding litigation. 4. The campaign filed this appeal on Sunday, November the 22nd, and we granted its motion to expedite in order to get it done quickly, because there's a time limit. The campaign filed its brief and another motion November the 23rd. Opposing briefs and filings arrived the next day. We are issuing this opinion non-precedentially, as we ruled by November the 27th. The campaign does not challenge the district court's finding that the voters lacked standing, so we do not consider their claims. On appeal, it seeks only narrow relief to overturn the district court's decision not to let it amend its complaint again. We address this part in part 2 separately. The campaign asks us for an injunction to prevent the certified votes from taking effect. We address this in part 3. Part 2, the district court properly denied leave to amend complaint again. And then there's some legalese shite. Courts should grant leave to amend freely where justice so requires. In civil rights cases, that means granting leave unless amendment would be futile or inequitable. Here the campaign's request fails on both equitability and futile. Also, both equitable and futile. So again, there are two potentials that stop you from getting this relief, and you fail on both. A. The campaign's delay was undue, given its stress on needing to resolve the case by November 23rd. And the reason it had to do so by that date was because that's the... Generally speaking, certainly in Pennsylvania, they have to certify within 20 days of the vote, of the election day. So 20 days from that is the 23rd. When the campaign was before the district court, it focused its arguments on the need to resolve the case by Pennsylvania's deadline. I know this seems dry, but we're going to get to some savage shit in a second. Or in about an hour when we get to it. But anyway, trust me, it gets very, very nice. Where are we? When the campaign was before the district court, it focused its arguments on the need to resolve the case in Pennsylvania's deadline for counties to certify their votes, Monday the 23rd of November. Or November 23rd. Indeed, all three iterations of the complaint focused their prayers for relief, on blocking the certification of the vote tally. The campaign said it could get no meaningful remedy after that date, which, I mean, is interesting considering they tried after that date, hence the "it's moot, get out of my fucking court" that we just saw earlier. The campaign filed its first amended complaint on November the 15th, 8 days after the certification, 8 days before the certification deadline. In response to several pending motions to dismiss, it dropped many of the challenged counts from the original complaint. It did not then move to file a second amended complaint until November the 18th. So that's 5 fucking days. What do you expect a court to do in 5 days? Not just that, but even if they say yes, you know that wouldn't be dismissed with prejudice, so the opposition could just appeal, and it would definitely go past the 23rd, be moot, and therefore kicked out of court. This is literally just the Trump campaign. This is Trump campaign copium, but in legal form. They're trying to set up in the minds of their own supporters, oh, we tried to do it the legal way, but the legal system's full of the deep states. Even though this guy was literally put there by Trump. Anyway. When its opposition to the new motions to dismiss was due, and it did not file a brief in support of that motion until Friday, November the 20th. Certification was 3 days away. As the district court rightly noted, amending that close to the deadline would have delayed resolving the issues. True, delay alone is not enough to bar amendment, but at some point the delay will become undue, placing an unwarranted burden on the court. The campaign's motion would have done just that. It would have mooted the existing motion to dismiss and required new briefing, possibly new oral argument, and a reasoned judicial opinion within 72 hours over a weekend. That is too much to ask, especially since the proposed Second Amendment complaint largely repealed many claims abandoned by the first one, which is just legal fuckery. The Trump campaign are trying to do legal fuckery. Having repeatedly stressed the certification deadline, the campaign cannot now pivot and object that the district court abused its discretion by holding the campaign to that very deadline. It did not. He's getting a bit testy now, old Bibas. Like, Donald Trump put him in place, but he's not Donald Trump's little bitch, clearly, because this guy's getting fucking angry now. By holding the campaign to that very deadline, it did not. You're full of shit, Trump. B. Amending the complaint again would have been futile. The campaign focused on critiquing the district court's discussion of undue delay. Though the court properly rested on that ground, we can affirm that any ground supported by the record. Another ground also supports his denial to leave to amend. It would have been futile. 1. The campaign had to plead plausible facts, not conclusory allegations. So again, you don't come in here with a conclusion, you give us fucking proof. You give us evidence of some kind, and then we make a conclusion based on that. Plaintiffs must do more than allege conclusions. Which is a really nice kind of legalese way of bitch slapping Rudy Giuliani for standing up and trying to be the big I am in court. Which, I mean, he alleged like weird fucking conclusions and stuff during the initial oral arguments on the first complaint. And he was really, like, he was treated like a ragdoll verbally by the state's attorney, who was just like, this is unfit for the court. What the fuck is going on? Which is why Bibas is clearly annoyed by this. He's clearly angered that he's having to waste his fucking time with this nonsense. Anyway. So your plaintiffs must do more than allege conclusions. Rather, a complaint must contain sufficient factual matter accepted as true to state a claim to relief that is plausible on its face. Threadbare recitals of the elements of a cause of action supported by mere conclusory statements do not suffice. The second amended complaint did not meet Twombly and Iqbal's, an amazing couple of names there, baseline standard for specifics, or of specifics. Oh. To start, note what it does not allege: fraud. So again, they big claims outside the court, inside the court. Note what it doesn't do. It doesn't say fraud at any fucking point. Indeed, in oral argument before the district court, campaign lawyer Rudolph Maltyface conceded that the court, quote, doesn't plead fraud, unquote. He reiterated, quote, if we had alleged fraud, yes, but this is not a fraud case, unquote. I'll repeat, Rudolph Giuliani, the weird man who touches himself in front of 15-year-olds, well, people he thinks are 15, it's weird, fucking Borat stuff anyway. If we had alleged fraud, yes, but this is not a fraud case. This is not a fraud case. This is not a fraud case, unquote. Though it alleges many conclusions, the second amended complaint is light on facts. That's quite nice. Again, legalese way of saying this is nonsense. What the fuck are you doing? Light on facts. Because again, if there's one thing courts don't like, it's light on facts. You need to establish like facts and stuff, you know. Take the nearly identical paragraphs contained introducing counts 1, 2, 4 and 6. Quote, Democrats who controlled the defendant county election board engaged in a deliberate scheme of intentional and purposeful discrimination by excluding Republican and Trump campaign observers from the canvassing of the mail ballots in order to conceal their decision not to enforce certain ballot requirements, unquote. That is conclusory. Yeah, exactly. You can't go in there and say, this is definitely what happened. You have to say, this is the evidence, and this is why we believe, blah, blah, blah. Not just state it and then walk away like, yep, job done. And you need to show that shit. Anyway. Upon information and belief, it is a lawyerly way of saying that the campaign does not know that something is a fact, but just suspects it or has heard it. It's a lawyerly way of saying that the campaign does not know that something is a fact. So in other words, you don't know that this is true. You're saying things you don't know are true. Fucking hell. While legal conclusions can provide the framework of a complaint, they must be supported by factual allegations. Yet the campaign offers no specific facts to back up these claims. I don't know that Trump's doing his own reputation any good with this. I really don't. I certainly know that the lawyers who have taken these cases have not. What document is this? Oh, sorry, did you miss the beginning of my bit? We're bottom of page 12, so I'll go back at the top. This is the opinion, so in other words, the verdict of the Third Court of Appeals from Pennsylvania. This was the case that many on the right, including, if you remember, Dr. Carolyn Borisenko, said that was definitely going to win. This was their winning ticket. They were going to overturn Pennsylvania, and it's been thrown out without prejudice, so they can't even appeal in this court. They'd have to go up to the Supreme Court, and that's not going to happen. Anyway, so they brought a case on the basis of the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution and said that the Trump campaign was treated unfairly, and this was, a part of a discrimination thing, which isn't remotely true. And the judge, who is Judge Bibas, who was put on the court by Donald Trump, has thrown this out and basically said, you're full of shit. And he really does. In the second half of this, he gets quite savage at points. It's delicious. Anyway, where are we? Yeah, so the campaign offers no specific facts to back up these claims. None. Actually, if you want to go and look at the thing itself, actually, I'll put this in the chat for everyone. If you want to go and look at the actual... I occasionally look at the chat, but to be honest with you, as I'm currently reading a thing, it's difficult to read that as well. Apologies, everybody. It's a lot easier when I'm watching a video. I can flip back and look at the thing a little bit. But as I'm reading this, I can't read two things at once. I do have two eyes, but they need to look at the same thing. Anyway, 2. The campaign has already litigated and lost most of these issues. Again, Donald Trump is a loser. That's the thing to bear in mind, everyone. Donald Trump is a massive fucking loser. Many of the second amended complaints claims have already had their day in court and failed. Failed miserably. The campaign cannot use this lawsuit to collaterally attack those prior rulings. Yeah, basically, if you were dismissed without prejudice, as they virtually all were, I think, you can't just coagulate them into a different thing, because that's trying to undermine previous rulings, which isn't allowed, and is pretty disgusting, because you're not trying to just undermine democracy at that point, you're also trying to understand an independent and fair judiciary as well. Which is not surprising, because that's what Donald Trump's whole shtick is about, but it's no less disgusting. On counts 1, 2, 4 and 6, 2, 4, 6, 8, motorway. A little bit of an extra Tom Robinson band for you there. The campaign have already litigated whether ballots that lack a handwritten name, address and date on the outer envelope must be disqualified. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled against the campaign, holding, quote, the election code does not require boards of elections to disqualify mail-in or absentee ballots subjected to by qualified electors who signed the declaration on their ballot's outer envelope but did not handwrite their name, their address and/or date where no fraud or irregularity has been alleged. So in other words, that's another time that Trump lost. Again, massive loser. That holding undermines the campaign's suggestion that the defective ballots should not have been counted. Counts 1 and 2 also challenge the requirement that poll watchers be registered electors of the county they wish to observe and that observers be Pennsylvania lawyers. Again, I think that's slightly silly in the sense that I can understand why you would need to be a lawyer, possibly, because you need to know what the law is on the ballot counting process to understand what irregularities would be. Albeit that you don't necessarily have to be a trained lawyer, you could just be a count expert or something. Anyway. But regardless, right, and the fact that you have to be from the county that you want to observe in. You can't be from, say, one county and then go to a different county and count there in Pennsylvania, anyway. But the thing is, again, states' rights, guys, right-wingers, listen to me, please. States' rights goes beyond racism and guns, okay? It also means things like elections. The states make their own fucking laws. You can like it or not, but that's the way it fucking is. And again, they're objecting to that, even though it's in the law. What are you objecting to? If you want the law changed, you have to go through the legislature. And you have to have done so before the election. You can't retroactively do it now. Anyway. But a federal district court has already held, quote, that the county residency requirement for poll watchers does not, as applied to the particular circumstances of the selection, burden any of the campaign's fundamental constitutional rights. Obviously. The campaign never... He doesn't say obviously, I've added that, but yeah. The campaign never appealed that decision, and so it is bound by it. Yeah. Count 7 alleges that Philadelphia's Board of Elections violated due process by obstructing poll watchers and representatives, but noting in the due process clause requires having poll watchers or representatives but nothing in the due process clause requires having poll watchers or representatives, let alone watchers from outside a county or less than 18 feet from the nearest table. The campaign cites no authority for these propositions, and we know of none. Again, it's kind of he's sort of slapping him about here at this point. It's quite nice, but it gets a lot better. Ditto for notice and cure procedures. Also, again, I love the use of the word ditto. That's a lovely bit of arcane language. And the campaign litigated and lost that claim under state law too. He's a massive loser. He's a repeated loser. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court held that the election code requires that only that the poll watchers be in the room, not that they be within any specific distance of the ballots. The campaign does not challenge the dismissal of counts 3, 5 and 9. 3, 5, 7, 9, a little white line. It's another bit from the same song. The Electors and Elections Clause counts. It concedes that under our recent decision, it lacks standing to pursue alleged violations of those clauses. And then the more legalese wank. Given its concession, we need not consider the issue anymore. Get out of my face. The second amended complaint thus boils down to equal protection claims in counts 2, 4, 6, 8, motorway. They require no violations by state law but discrimination in applying it. Those claims fail too. You're such a loser, Donald. 3. The campaign never pleads that any defendant treated the Trump and Biden campaign or votes differently, which is literally the whole point. The equal protection thing is, as long as all people are treated equally in each county, it doesn't matter. And yet they're saying, no, we weren't treated any differently. The fuck are you doing then? What are you doing? Anyway. Oh. It requires unequal treatment or similarly situated parties, but the campaign never pleads or alleges that anyone treated it differently from the Biden campaign. Count 1 alleges that the counties refused to credential the campaign's poll watchers or kept them behind metal barricades away from the ballots. It never alleges that other campaigns' poll watchers or representatives were treated differently. Again, there's nothing in either the Pennsylvania law or in the Equal Rights and Elections clauses of the United States Constitution which says that anything other than you have to have them in the room. All it says is they have to be treated the same. Right? They're allowed in the room and they have to be treated the same. And yet they're bringing a claim under equal protection clause saying that they were treated differently, but not alleging that they were actually treated differently. Do you see why this is such a fucking ridiculously backward legal attempt? Like, America needs to be very, very grateful that when fascism came to America, it was led by morons. Because had you had a competent fascist in power, this could have gone very, very badly. Very badly. Luckily, they're fucking morons. Like I say, count your blessings, but fucking act. We're treated differently. Count 2 alleges that an unnamed lawyer was able to watch all aspects of voting in York County, while poll watchers in Philadelphia, were not. It also makes a claim about one Jared M. Mellott, who was able to poll watch in York County. Counts 4 and 6 allege that poll watcher Graham Galenthin had no issues in Bucks County but was barred from watching in Philadelphia. That's presumably because he's registered as living in Bucks County and not in Philadelphia, which are bordering counties, to be fair, but still. And Count 8 alleges that a Pennsylvania officer kept Jeremy Mercer too far away to verify the ballots were properly filled out. Again, nothing in the law. They've already stated nothing in the law says you have to be any close. As long as you're all allowed the same distance, whether that be 2 inches or 2 fucking meters or 20 meters, is irrelevant. Or indeed the hundreds of yards that were claimed by the Trump campaign. What buildings were these taking place in hundreds of yards? Like on an airport runway? What are you talking about? They literally said they had to wear binoculars. Like, fuck off, man. What a fucking joke. Anyway, sorry. And I know this, by the way, I realise that this is like, we're nearly a month away out from this now, and it might seem redundant, but I'm like a moth to the flame. When I see idiocy on this level, I can't not analyse it. I can't let it go. It's there. I'm like a crow that sees the shiny wrapper. I can't not go down to the shiny wrapper. It's right. It's just lying there. Why don't I peck at it? You know? Also, if you're still here, it's because you fucking love it, you slags. Anyway. None of these counts alleges facts showing improper vote counting. Again, they preached a big game about the illegal votes and they're putting stacks in this pile and votes, Trump votes in the Biden piles, and 100,000 ballots suddenly appearing. And then when they get to court, no, there was no improper voting, but can we just have the election, please? Can we just win? Can you allow us to win, please? Like, it's fucking embarrassing, man. Like I say, be very grateful, America, that your fascists are incompetent twats. But they won't always be, so act to prevent it happening again, please. And none alleges facts showing that the Trump campaign was singled out for adverse treatment, even though that's literally the point of the Equal Protection Clause. The campaign cites no authority suggesting that any actor discriminates by treating people equally while harbouring a partisan motive, and we know of none. Again, basically saying you've got nothing. These county-to-county variations do not show discrimination. Quote, counties may, consistent with equal protection, employ entirely different election procedures and voting systems within a single state. That was from another case that Donald Trump lost. That's another one that he lost, that one there. Yeah. He's a massive loser. Again, bears repeating. Donald Trump, right, for all of the things he may or may not be, he is definitely a repeated, massive fucking loser. And that will never, ever stop being fun to say. Even when boards of elections vary considerably, quote unquote, in how they decide to reject ballots, those local differences in implementing statewide standards do not violate equal protection. Blah, 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 blah. These are two examples of where that has previously come up. So precedent has been set. Even though this case in general is not precedent, those are precedents that are being used. Anyway. Recognising that equal protection lets different counties use different voting systems. Nor does Bush v. Gore help the campaign. There, the Florida Supreme Court had ratified treating ballots unequally at 107. That was because the principle is set forth the, quote, intent of the voter, unquote, lacked any, quote, specific standards to ensure its equal application, unquote. The lack of any standard at all empowered officials to treat ballots arbitrarily, violating equal protection. Here, by contrast, Pennsylvania's election code gives counties specific guidelines. To be sure, counties vary in implementing that guidance, but that is normal. Reasonable county-to-county variation is not discrimination. Bush v. Gore does not federalise every jot and tittle of state election law. The Trump campaign is annoying its own fucking judge here, to the point of him using the phrase every jot and tittle. You've turned him into a fucking Dickens character now at this point. Every jot and tittle of state election law? It's outrageous! Jot and tittle. Jot and tittle. Good God. Anyway. 4. The relief sought, throwing out millions of votes, is unprecedented. I just want to highlight the phrase throwing out millions of votes. They were seeking to throw out millions of votes. And it's especially funny given the examples they use to try and justify it, or the number of examples they use, which none of which they actually fucking verify, but just the number itself is funny. Not funny, horrifying. 4. The relief sought, throwing out millions of votes, is unprecedented. Finally, the second amended complaint seeks breathtaking relief. Breathtaking relief! Barring the Commonwealth from certifying its results or else declaring the election results defective and ordering the Pennsylvania General Assembly, not the voters, to choose Pennsylvania's presidential electors. It cites no authority for this drastic remedy. The closest the campaign comes to justifying the... Go away. I don't know if that came up on the screen there, but it was a thing telling me I needed to update, and it can suck my bollock. I've only got one, but it's massive. But those facts were a far cry from the ones... So hang on. The campaign, to justifying its relief, is citing Marx versus Stinson. Not Karl Marx. That's a different thing entirely. But those apparently his ghost and the ghost of Hugo Chavez are working together now. They're going to perform a double act. Look, there's a buddy cop comedy waiting to happen, isn't it? Marx and Chavez investigates. But those facts were a far cry from the ones here. In Marx, again, not that Marx. The district court found that Stinson campaign had organised massive absentee ballot fraud, deception, intimidation, harassment and forgery, quote unquote. Quoting district court's tentative findings, it had lied to voters, deceived election officials and forged ballots. We remanded that case, instructed that, quote, the district court should not direct the certification of a candidate unless it finds on the basis of record evidence that the designated candidate would have won the election but for wrongdoing, unquote. And that seemed likely. The Stinson campaign had gotten about 600 net absentee ballot applications, roughly 1,000 minus 400 that were later rejected, more than the 461 vote margin of victory. So, The Trump campaign cited this thing where a guy called Marks and a guy called Stinson were the two candidates in a local election. I think it was a county election rather than like even a statewide one, but in Pennsylvania, from 1994, where a guy had Marks had won by 461, but it looks like he'd engaged in a huge actual fraud, a huge actual mail-in ballot fraud, and it was caught. That's the thing. All of the examples the Trump people use, either in this election or in past elections, are ones that got caught. Because it's impossible to provide, it's impossible to do this and get away with it. Virtually, I mean, it would be unthinkable that you could get away with it. The systems are there in place to find such things. It's not easy. It really isn't. On this level, he got, but was it 1,000 ballots, and it was caught. Imagine trying to do that to the millions of ballots across the entirety of America that are being claimed were fraudulent here. How the fuck would that happen? Please, for the love of God, even hypothetically, how would you get away with that? It's fucking nonsense. Anyway, and that's obviously ridiculous because even in this, that's look again the massive absentee ballot fraud and deception. But in this case, again, to quote Rudolph Giuliani, the lawyer for the fucking case, he of the melty face and the touchy penis in front of teenagers, or people he thought were 15, whatever. This is not a fraud case. So they're citing a massive fraud and deception to try and justify their no fraud in this case. What? This judge is being really nice to them, although he stops being particularly nice in just a second. Here, however, there is no clear evidence of massive absentee ballot fraud or forgery. On the contrary, at oral argument in the district court, the campaign specifically disavowed any claim of fraud. The campaign specifically disavowed any claim of fraud, which sounds very different to everything else they say in public. And the margin of victory here is not nearly as close. Not 461 votes, but roughly 81,000. Not the first or last time they do the mathematics for them. Gets very sarcastic later on. Though district courts should freely give leave to amend, they do not do so when amendments would be futile. Because the Second Amendment complaint would not survive a motion to dismiss, the district court properly denies leave to file it. Because again, it would be futile. Oh, we're getting there, people. We're getting there. This is where it starts getting quite spicy. 3. No stay or injunction is warranted. We could stop here. We could stop here, but we're fucking not. You've dragged us down this level, Trump, and we're going to fucking rip you one. It's happening. When you're a president, a lame duck president, they just let you do it as well. It's mad. We could stop here. Once we affirm the denial of leave to amend, the case is over. Still, for completeness, and to bitch slap you for wasting our time, I've added that bit, but it's basically there. We address the campaign's emergency motion to stay the effect of certification. No stay or injunction is called for. So in other words, even though the court case fails on any number of other grounds, and we've already laid that out, we're going to carry on and tell you why your attempts to try and stop the election from being certified and thus disenfranchising millions of people of Pennsylvania is wrong and bad, and you're a cock. Though the campaign styles its motion as seeking a stay or preliminary injunction, what it really wants is an injunction pending appeal. But it neither requested that from the district court during the appeal, nor showed it could not make that request as required by the federal law of appellates, blah, blah, blah. That failure bars the motion. Even if we could grant relief, we would not. So even if we could, we fucking wouldn't, you dickheads. Injunction pending appeal, like preliminary injunctions, are extraordinary remedies never awarded as of right, quote unquote. For a stay or injunction pending appeal, the movant, which is the person who moves the motion, must show both a strong, quote unquote, likelihood of success on the merits and irreparable damage absent a stay or injunction. The first two factors are the most critical. After that, we also balance whether a stay or injunction will injure other interested parties, also called the balance of equities, and the public interest. None of the four factors taking this extraordinary step. None of the four factors favours taking this extraordinary step. So there are four elements. The first two are the most important, and you've got none of them. You haven't even got one of... Like, you'd expect just on the fucking likelihood of it, just on statistical probability, you'd have one. You got nothing. And they genuinely think the fucking Supreme Court is going to take this nonsense case up. You know they've got actually important shit to deal with on the Supreme Court. Like, even though you've stacked it, they're still fucking judges. They're not lunatics. They're fucking partisan, true, but you have to give them something to work with. They might be more amenable to helping Trump steal an election, but you do have to allow some sort of reason for them to do so. They're not going to take this case up. This is a nonsense. And again, even if they do, they'll just kick it back to this. They'll allow them to put the Second Amendment in. A case for dismissal will be a motion for dismissal will be put forward by Kathy Buckvar's team, and it'll be dismissed because there's no fucking evidence of anything. It's a joke. The Kraken. These people have been fucking smoking crack. A. The campaign has no strong likelihood of success on the merits. And again, the four things he mentioned there, right? He's going to take you through each one and tell you how you fucking don't have it. As discussed, the campaign cannot win this lawsuit. Cannot win this lawsuit. Trump, you're so good at losing that you cannot win. That's how good at losing you are. You're so good at losing, you might get sick at losing at some point. Maybe not, though. It conceded that it is not alleging election fraud. It has already raised and lost most of these state law issues, and it cannot relitigate them here. It cites no federal authority regulating poll watchers or notice and cure. It alleges no specific discrimination, and it does not contest that it lacks standing under the Election and Electors Clause. These claims... Am I back? Hello? I'm back. Okay, awesome. Sorry. Where did I get cut off? Yes, good. I'm glad I'm back. Where did I get cut off? Do we know? Someone could tell me. That would be most appreciative. Last I heard was, and it does not contest. It does not contest. Okay, we'll go to that. Where's that? It does not contest. And it does not contest that it lacks standing under the Elections Clause. And these claims cannot succeed. The claims cannot succeed. Okay? You can't win, Trump. You're so good at losing, you cannot win. Okay? Now, usually I'd think to myself, right, this is sort of overkill in some respects. Because literally, like they say here, we could stop here. We could stop here. We're not going to, but we could. Because it's over, right? At which point you'd say usually, yeah, okay, fair enough. Maybe stop then. But just, they don't want to put in too fine a point on this. They want to put a definite full stop, or period in America if you want, onto the end of the sentence. Just to make sure that Trump definitely knows this is not going to fucking fly. B. The campaign faces no irreparable harm. The campaign has not shown that denying relief will injure it. Quote, upon information and belief, unquote, it suspects that many of the 1.5 million mail-in ballots in the challenged counties were improperly counted. But it challenges no specific ballots. None. It challenges no specific ballots at all. The ballot alleges that at most 3 specific voters cast ballots that were not counted. 3 specific voters. So on the basis of 3, not 3%, not 3,000, not even 300, 3 individual human beings. none of whom did they provide evidence that they hadn't actually been counted, or that they'd even voted in the first place. So they hadn't actually proven that these 3 were examples. But let's just give it to them. Let's say there were 3. On the basis of 3 human beings being denied a vote, they want to deny 1.5 million people their vote. On the basis of 3 instances, they want to disenfranchise 1.5 million people. Just let that sink in for a second. Let those numbers sink in for just a moment. They wish to deny 1.5 million Pennsylvanians, 1.5 million American citizens of their right to vote because of 3 butthurt idiots who they can't even prove were denied a vote. That's nothing compared, I suppose, to the fact that they're trying to disenfranchise the entire state of Pennsylvania, which is home to tens of millions. What's the Pennsylvania population? 12.5 million people. Now, of course, those won't be totally all able to vote. Many of those will be children. Some will be felons. All the rest of it. But millions and millions of people. The entire state disenfranchised on the basis that they want to decertify. They don't want to be able to certify the results in Pennsylvania. To take 20 electoral college votes away from Joe Biden. Which, even if that did happen, fuck it. Even if it was certified in favour of Donald Trump, that would still be 286 electoral college votes, which is 16 more than he needs. Biden, that is. So Joe Biden would still win. But they want to disenfranchise 1.5 million human beings who they don't say for a second were fraudulent votes. They don't claim a single one of those 1.5 million were fraudulent, or dead people, or people's cats that have been sent ballots or whatever. None of that. They're not claiming any of it, but they want 1.5 million people disenfranchised because of 3 Republican pricks. 3 people. Don't know about you. I don't think that these people support democracy. I could be wrong. Just putting it out there. I think they might be fascist scum who need to be epistemically purged, let's say, from the American body politic. Not literally purged, not Stalin style, but they need to be removed from any positions of power and authority ever again. And it never alleges that anyone except a lawful voter cast a vote. Again, and it never alleges that anyone except a lawful voter cast a vote. So they want 1.5 million legal votes. By its own admission, 1.5 million legal votes thrown out. I'm surprised, though, because it's mainly from the areas that the blacks are in. And we know that the Republicans love black people because Donald Trump's done so much for the blacks. He loves the blacks. That's the way he refers to them, by the way. Ridiculous. They're basically trying to disenfranchise millions of black voters. That's precisely what they're doing. We literally had the instance in one of the precincts is it not Fulton County? That's Atlanta, isn't it? I think. Or is it? Oh, but anyway, fucking Detroit. Which is a largely black district, precinct, black precinct, and they had in the vote count they had a Republican specifically designated who would object to any ballot coming from that precinct, any ballot, regardless. Their entire job, they were given the specific task of objecting to every single ballot coming from that almost entirely black neighbourhood. Yeah, tell me they're not racists? I fucking double dare you. Of the 7 counties which notice and cure procedures... Of the 7 counties whose notice and cure procedures are challenged, 4, including the 3 most populous, represented... that they gave notice to about 6,500 voters who sent in defective ballot packages. Allegheny County That's the case, sorry. Yeah. The campaign never disputed these numbers or alleged its own. Even if 10,000 voters got no notice and cured their defective ballots, and every single one of them had voted for Biden, that is less than an eighth of the margin of victory. Even if 10,000 voters got notice and cured their defective ballots, and every single one of them voted for Biden, that is less than an eighth of the margin of victory. They're doing the mathematics to burn him now. This is fucking savage. They're doing the mathematics. Even if you grant that 10,000 of them were done this way, and they all went for Biden, that's still less than an eighth of the loss, you fucking pricks. You're wasting our time. This is fucking brutal. Without more facts, we will not extrapolate from those modest numbers to postulate that the number of affected ballots comes close to the certified margin of victory of 80,555 votes. Denying relief will not move the needle. In other words, denying relief, not giving you what you ask for here, won't change anything. It doesn't matter. You've lost either way. You can't make up these votes. Oh, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Plus, states are primarily responsible for running federal elections. Pennsylvania law has detailed mechanisms for disputing election results. Because the campaign can raise these issues and seek relief through state courts and then the US Supreme Court, any harm may not be irreparable. So in other words, us denying this doesn't stop you taking it to the Supreme Court, who will also laugh at you. C. The balance of equities opposes disenfranchising voters. Nor would granting relief be equitable. The campaign has already litigated and lost many of these issues as garden variety state law claims. Again, they love pointing out you've already lost this. Why are you bringing this to us? It now tries to turn them into federal constitutional claims, but cannot. Even if it could, it has delayed bringing the suit. For example, in proposed count 4, it challenges giving voters notice and letting them cure ballot defects as violating equal protection. The campaign could have disputed these practices while they were happening or during the canvassing period. Instead, it waited almost a week after Election Day to file its original complaint, almost another week to amend it, and then another 3 days to amend it again. Its delay is inequitable, and further delay would wreak further inequity, and the campaign's charges are selective. Though Pennsylvanians cast 2.6 million mail-in ballots, the campaign challenges 1.5 million of them. It cherry-picks votes cast in Democrat-heavy counties, but not those in Republican-heavy counties. Second amended complaint, Without compelling evidence of massive fraud, not even alleged here, we can hardly grant such lopsided relief. Again, they're doing the maths for them. The mathematics. The math, as Americans wrongly say. Granting relief would harm millions of Pennsylvania voters too. The campaign would have to set aside 1.5 million ballots without even alleging fraud. That's the kicker, right? The campaign would have us set aside 1.5 million ballots without even alleging fraud. Not without proving fraud, without even alleging fraud. They want to scrap 1.5 million self-admittedly legal ballots. So when you see them on TV saying all legal votes should be counted, send them this and say, what the fuck are you talking about? You're literally asking Pennsylvania's Supreme Court to set aside, to scrap, to throw in the bin, in the trash, 1.5 million legal votes. Votes that you haven't even alleged were fraudulent. You lying bastards. As the deadline to certify votes has already passed, granting relief would disenfranchise these voters or sidestep the expressed will of the people. Which is literally the point. That's why Donald Trump is trying to do this. He's trying to sidestep the will of the people. Because he knows the will of the people is that he needs to fuck off. Tossing out those ballots could disrupt every damn ballot race as well. There is no allegation of fraud, let alone proof. Again, just a little slap. Look, he's dressing him down, but he's also just slapping his fat chops as well. there is no allegation of fraud, let alone proof, get the fuck out of my face, to justify harming those millions of voters as well as other candidates. Delicious. D's nuts. D. The public interest favours counting all lawful voters' votes. Yeah, you would think any actual supporter of democracy would agree with that. The Trump campaign vehemently oppose it. Lastly, relief would not serve the public interest. Democracy depends on counting all lawful votes promptly and finally, not setting them aside without weighty proof. The public must have confidence that our government honours and respects their votes. What is more, throwing out those votes would conflict with Pennsylvania election law. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court has long liberally construed. Now, liberally doesn't mean liberal in like the George Soros, like liberally as in openly, whatever. Construed its election code, quote, to protect voters' rights to vote, unquote, even when a ballot violates a technical requirement. And again, bear that in mind. They're not trying to throw out illegal votes here. Just they're trying to throw out any black people votes on the basis of technicality. It's really, really bad. Quote, technicality should not be used to make the right of the voter insecure, unquote. The court recently reiterated, quote, the election code should be liberally construed so as not to deprive, inter alia, electors of their right to elect a candidate of their choice, unquote. Thus, unless there is evidence of fraud, Pennsylvania law overlooks small ballot glitches and respects the expressed intent of every lawful voter. In our federalist system, we must respect Pennsylvania's approach to running elections. We will not make more ballot technicalities than Pennsylvania itself does. Voters, not lawyers, choose the president. I'll just highlight that for a second. Voters, not lawyers, choose the president. I think that is a sly jab at Rudolph Giuliani, who you remember during the infamous and fucking delicious Four Seasons Total Landscaping press conference, where between a cremation, a crematorium, whatever, and a pawn shop next to the presidential fire hose outside of the place, obviously, he gave that press conference, which was delusional nonsense, whilst the man in the background in his underpants was screaming about George Soros. It was all very funny. He said, the media doesn't decide elections. Damn the law. Lawyers decide this. And I think that's a sly way of saying voters, not lawyers. Rudy, you fucking prick. Choose the president. That's what I think. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not, but maybe. Ballots, not briefs, decide elections. The ballots here are governed by Pennsylvania election law. No federal law requires poll watchers or specifies where they must live or how close they may stand when votes are counted. Nor does federal law govern whether to count ballots with minor state law defects or let voters cure those defects. Those are all issues of state law, not ones that we can hear. And earlier lawsuits have rejected those claims. Seeking to turn those state law claims into federal ones, the campaign claims discrimination. But its alchemy cannot transmute lead into gold. They're saying, your case is so shit, you're trying to do alchemy. You fucking pricks. That is, I think, about as brutal as a legal document will ever get. It's amazing. Well, outside of, like, descriptions of a murder. I mean, in terms of, like, the fucking dry legal document in this regard. Seeking to turn those state laws into federal ones, the campaign claims discrimination. But its alchemy cannot transmute lead into gold. Fucking hell. That, seriously, can you imagine a lawyer, a judge being more, like, just bitch slapping a motherfucker? You're trying to do alchemy, you fucking backward twat. The campaign, oh, my voice went crazy. The campaign never alleges that any ballot was fraudulent or cast by an illegal voter. It never alleges that any defendant treated the Trump campaign or its votes worse than it treated the Biden campaign or its votes. Calling something discrimination does not make it so. Again, reiterating the thing right at the very top. The second, the opening sentence, wasn't it? But calling an election unfair does not make it so. And then he reiterates all the way down here. Where are we? Yeah, hang on. No. Come on. Oh, bollocks, I've lost where I was. Yeah, there we go. Calling something discrimination does not make it so. The second amended complaint still suffers from these core defects, so granting leave to amend would have been futile. And there is no basis to grant the unprecedented injunction sought here. First, for the reasons already given, the campaign is unlikely to succeed on the merits. Second, it shows no irreparable harm, offering specific challenges to many fewer ballots than the roughly 81,000 vote margin of victory. Third, the campaign is responsible for its delay and repetitive litigation. So in other words, they know they're wasting time. And courts don't like having their time wasted. Finally, the public interest strongly favours finality, counting every lawful voter's vote and not disenfranchising millions of Pennsylvania voters who voted by mail. Plus, discarding those votes could disrupt every other election on the ballot. We thus affirm the District Court's denial of leave to amend, and we deny any injunction pending appeal. The campaign asked for a very fast briefing schedule, and we have granted its request because the campaign wants us to move as fast as possible. We also deny oral argument. So basically, you wanted a quick resolution to this, so we're not even going to let you talk. Shut the fuck up, sit down, and I'm going to bitch slap you about alchemy, you fucking time-wasting cockheads. We grant all motions to file over-length responses, to file amicus briefs, and to supply appendices. We deny all other outstanding motions as moot. This court's mandate shall issue at once. Fucking alchemy. Fucking alchemy, man. Ooh. Trump, you're such a fucking loser. You're such a loser. It's too beautiful, man. Oh, see, that's legal documents rarely get that beautiful. I need to marry that legal document. Fucking alchemy, Jesus. What was it? Apologies, everyone. I should have got this up earlier. That's what she said. Yes. So yeah, I'll keep everyone up to date with how things go in these court cases. We're still waiting to hear, because it'll be next week now, what happens to the Kraken. Although I know what's going to happen to the Kraken. The court are going to throw it the fuck out of the room because it's a joke, obviously. But I thought I had to bring that to you. More like alchemy, nice, because they lost. Yes, Trump is a loser. Anyway, so I'll keep you up to date with that and all other pending things. Like I say, they'll kick it up to the Supreme Court, but they won't hear it. And even if they did, all they would do is kick it straight back down to the court. They'd allow the Second Amendment. A motion to dismiss would be issued, and it will be dismissed because they've already ruled you've got no case. So this is going nowhere. This is all the takeaway from all of this, right? All of the Trump campaign's legal nonsense, all of its chicanery, is just that. Chicanery. It's nonsense. It's theatre. It's performance. They want to set up A, for the mental well-being of Donald Trump, that he can pretend he won and was robbed, and B, his the mental well-being of his supporters, the Trump fucking lunatics, that their granddaddy fucking wizard man creature, Donald Trump, that he didn't lose, right? And that they tried to take it to the courts, but the courts were all stacked with deep state Illuminati moondew lizard people in human suits, or whatever Alex Jones, David Icke bullshit they want to throw at the wall. But again, it's worth reiterating the article, the opinion, judgment that I just read to you and went through with you was from Judge Bibas, who was put on that court by Donald Trump. So, they have to come to a conclusion here, if they're to be intellectually honest, which they're certainly not interested in being, and in some cases aren't capable of being, I would suggest. But if they want to be intellectually consistent, they have to either say that it isn't just the deep state Illuminati Moon Jew lizard people who are doing this, or that Donald Trump is in league with the Illuminati Moon Jew lizard people. It's one or the other. It can't be. It can't be. It can't be. It can't be both, and it can't be neither. Well, actually, it is neither, because Illuminati Moon Jew lizard people aren't real. That's QAnon fantasy, obviously, but from their perspective, you know. Anyway, yes. So I will leave you with this one really important fact, okay? That being, I still fucking won. I've still won. I will never not have won.
Okay, we're in my backyard, and you're probably wondering, why are we here? Well, a year ago, I made a bet with Kevin Logan that if Trump won re-election, he would dump ice water on his head, and if Trump lost, I would dump ice water on mine. Now, yes, the election has not been finalized.
It has.
However, I'm about 95.5 certain that it's going to go one way. And that probably means we're going to have President-elect Biden, the worst president we're ever going to have.
Yeah, enjoy your 4 years,
But
motherfucker.
a bet's a bet. He's called me out. So I now take this bucket of ice water and dump it upon my head. Okay, Kevin. Our bet is done.
Fuck yes. Genuinely, I will never, ever, ever, ever get tired of that. That will never not be awesome for me. Anyway, on that victory bombshell, I will leave you. This was a special on Saturday. I usually do Mondays to Fridays, 7 PM UK time, 2 PM on the east coast of Americana land. I'll talk about politics and stuff. Subscribe to me here on the YouTubes. Go and follow me or subscribe to me on Twitch as well. The links are all below of my Twitter and my Facebook and my the Patreon and PayPal if you want to give me money as well. If you really enjoy what I do here, you don't have to. No fucking big deal, but it all helps. Yes, and I'll be on tomorrow at 11 AM UK time, which is 12 midday in Central Europe, which is Central European time, I should say. What time is that in America? That's fucking hell, 6 AM. So it's quite early in America, apologies. And I'll be on with Christy Winters, who I do a show with regularly, but it won't be that show, it'll just be her Sunday show, and I'm a guest, so whatever. So I don't quite know what's happening there, but we'll take a look at something, I suppose. Go and follow Christy's channel. She's also awesome. Yeah. Thank you all for listening and watching. And though the traitors flinch, no, the cowards flinch and the traitors sneer, we'll keep the red flag flying here.